Good morning. We're now in session. I'm Jennifer Homendy, and I'm honored to serve as chairwoman of the National Transportation Safety Board and chair of the Board of Inquiry. I'm joined by my fellow board members, Vice Chairman Michael Graham, Member Tom Chapman, and Member John DeLue. Together, we comprise the Board of Inquiry for this investigative hearing, the notice for which was published in the Federal Register on May 4th, 2026. Behind me is Mr. Eric Johnson, who will provide legal support, and I recognize our hearing officer, Mr. Chihoon Shin, for the safety briefing and general announcements.
Thank you. Please silence your electronic devices if you have not done so already. Restrooms are in the lobby to the left as you exit the boardroom. We will now share important safety information for those here in person. Please play the video.
Hello, and welcome to the NTSB boardroom. Before we get started with today's meeting, I'd like to quickly walk you through our emergency procedures. First things first, please take a moment to silence your phones or other electronic devices. If you need the restrooms, they're just outside the boardroom on the left side of the lobby. If someone experiences a medical emergency, our on-site Federal Protective Service officers are trained to respond. They'll call 911, perform CPR if needed, and use the automated external defibrillator device mounted in the lobby between the boardroom exit doors. They're also trained to provide first aid. There's a first aid kit at the security desk in the lobby. If we're asked to shelter in place, like during severe weather or a security incident, please stay seated and listen for instructions. Our security team will manage the situation and let us know when it's safe to leave. If the fire alarm sounds, please follow NTSB staff to the nearest exit. There are two main options. You can exit via the stairs next to the stage, or you can exit the same way you came in through the lobby. Please walk, don't run. Once outside, you'll be directed to an assembly area. Stay there until we're clear to come back inside. If there's a small fire, our security officers are trained to respond using one of the fire extinguishers. You'll find them in 3 locations: by the stairwells on either side of the stage at the front of the boardroom, mounted on the wall at the back of the boardroom, and near the security area in the lobby. For anyone who needs an accessible evacuation route, you can use the door on the left side of the lobby, which leads you into the parking garage. From there, turn right and follow the walkway to the street level. NTSB staff will be available to assist anyone who needs help. And finally, safety is everyone's responsibility. If you see anything that seems off or concerning, please let a staff member or security officer know right away. Thank you for helping us maintain a safe and secure space.
Chairwoman Homendy, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, and thank you to Sherry for the safety video as well. For those who are here or who are watching online and who may not be familiar with the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, we are an independent federal agency charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation accident in the United States and significant accidents and incidents in other modes of transportation. At the conclusion of our investigations, we issue an official determination regarding probable cause and, as appropriate, safety recommendations to prevent future accidents. The NTSB also investigates certain incidents that present significant safety issues. The NTSB strives to accurately identify and report all relevant facts, conditions, and circumstances relating to each accident or incident it investigates. When necessary, we hold investigative hearings. An investigative hearing allows the NTSB to gather sworn testimony from witnesses on issues identified by the investigative team for a specific accident or incident. Investigative hearings are fact-finding proceedings. The purpose is to receive all testimony and evidence that may be of aid in determining the probable cause of the transportation accident or incident. This hearing is a critical part of our ongoing investigation of the accident involving UPS Flight 2976, which crashed during takeoff from Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville, Kentucky on November 4th, 2025. As a result of the accident, the 3 crew members aboard the airplane and 12 persons on the ground tragically lost their lives. This includes 1 person who succumbed to their injuries 51 days after the accident. 23 others on the ground at the time of the accident were injured physically. I say physical injuries, and I highlight that in every public meeting we have, because this accident, just like others, undoubtedly caused invisible injuries that aren't reflected in the numbers we provide. Psychological and emotional trauma from being physically injured, witnessing an accident, or losing a loved one can have a profound impact on lives and livelihoods. With that, I'd like to take a moment to address the families and friends who lost loved ones or those who were injured in this terrible tragedy. On behalf of the NTSB, please accept our heartfelt sympathies, our condolences, and please know that your loved ones are the reason we're here. We want to find out what happened. And after this investigation concludes, our work does not end. Once we have a final board meeting, we continue to work to make sure all the recommendations we issued are implemented so that no one else has to suffer a similar tragedy. I have to say, before each investigative hearing, we meet with loved ones who choose to be part of that meeting. And it is a time for us certainly to walk through the process. That is the goal of the investigative hearing. But it's also a time where we learn about your loved ones, about surviving children, about the care you're providing them, about love letters that were written between spouses, poems over years. I just share with you how deeply sorry we are for your losses. And just know we don't forget. Several representatives from our Transportation Disaster Assistance team are here who can help connect you with support resources. Can our TDA colleagues stand? So we have Elias and Jessica and Sarah right here. Okay, yep, we have a bunch of folks here, also folks back in the lobby. Please don't hesitate. Anybody here, doesn't have to be a family member. If you need assistance, please don't hesitate to speak with them. They'd be glad to help. We also have the Red Cross here. And I want to thank them for their work. They are often with us in the immediate days following a tragedy, and certainly throughout the process. Volunteer mental health clinicians from the Red Cross are available today and for the duration of this hearing to provide support. I want to thank the first and second responders to this accident, also on behalf of the board. Multiple organizations responded to the scene of this tragedy to support search and recovery efforts and assist in our investigative work. Thank you for your public service, your dedication, and your heart. I also want to take a moment before we go into staff introductions to just highlight how important our recommendations are. We're not issuing findings today. We're not issuing a probable cause. We are not issuing recommendations today. What we do today will lead to that, and we appreciate all your help, everyone here, in doing that. But when we do hold a final board meeting and issue a final report, and we issue safety recommendations, they are the result of the hard work of all of you and the team here and our experts throughout the National Transportation Safety Board. They are to be taken seriously. Those recommendations are aimed, they're comprehensive, they're extensive, and they're aimed at preventing another tragedy. And if they're not implemented, and this is what I want to highlight, if they are not taken seriously, If they are not implemented, we will be here again. None of us want that. So we will work vigorously at the end of this investigation, just like we do in other investigations like DCA, to ensure that our recommendations are implemented. Now, for staff introductions, starting with Mr. Shin. In addition to serving as our hearing officer, he is also the investigator in charge for this accident investigation and is also involved in other investigations that are ongoing right now at the NTSB. Mr. Shin.
Thank you, Chairwoman Hamady. In the front row, we have the staff who are serving on Technical Panel 1. Starting to my right, they are Mr. Nils Johnson, Accident Investigator for Maintenance, Dr. Catherine Wilson, Senior Human Performance Investigator, Mr. Clinton Crookshanks, Aerospace Engineer for Structures, and Mrs. Eloisa Oki, Aerospace Engineer for Structures. Behind me in the second row, we have Mr. Errol Jordheim, Structures Engineer, who will also operate the audio visuals, Ms. Tatum Butler, Recorder Specialist, who will operate the timer, Mr. Tim LeBaron, Director of the Office of Aviation Safety, and Mr. Akbar Sultan, Director of the Office of Research and Engineering. Chairwoman Hamady, this concludes staff introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Shin, and thank you to the staff. Now let's turn to the parties to the hearing. Federal regulations guide how we designate parties to an NTSB investigative hearing. They are, quote, those persons and organizations whose participation in the hearing is deemed necessary in the public interest and whose special knowledge will contribute to the development of pertinent evidence. The parties to this hearing have been designated in accordance with these regulations and selected for their technical expertise in their respective fields. Parties are essential in helping us develop the facts around an investigation. We appreciate your valuable time and your contributions. As I call the name of each party, I ask the designated spokesperson to identify themselves and then introduce others at their table. Please push the microphone button to talk and push it again when finished. We're going to go in alphabetical order, starting with Boeing.
Thank you, Chair Hamady and members of the board. I'm Stella Widener. I'm the Director for Product Safety and Investigations. On behalf of the Boeing Company and personally, I would like to share my deepest condolences to the family and to the friends of those who died in the accident. Our thoughts remain with those who were injured and with the community of Louisville. With me today, I have across the table, Eric East, Senior Air Safety Investigator and Technical Fellow. To his left, Nathan Williams, Air Safety Investigator. Stephen Chisholm, Mechanical and Structural Functional Chief Engineer. Across the table from Steve, I have Kristen Auslander, Out of Production Chief Engineer. And finally, Craig Gabriel, Chief Counsel, Quality and Regulatory Matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Widener. Federal Aviation Administration.
Good morning, Chairwoman Hamady and members of the board. My name is Matt Kabeck. I'm the Acting Deputy Director for Accident Investigation and Prevention. With me is Heidi Kemner from the Accident Investigation Division, the party coordinator for this accident. To her right, Deep Guav from the Aircraft Certification Service. Across the table, Ken Fairhurst, Aircraft Certification Service. Rebecca Leip from Chief Counsel's Office, and Louis Weinhardt from Louisville FSDO, and FAA would also like to express our deep gratitude to the board for this investigative hearing and our condolences to the family and friends of the victims.
Thank you, Mr. Kabeck. International Brotherhood of Teamsters Airline Division.
Good morning, Chairwoman Hamady and fellow board members. I'm Chuck Landis, Teamster Local 2727 Emergency Response Coordinator and a UPS Lead Service Technician. I'm joined by Mr. Chris Moore, Teamster Safety Coordinator, Josh McInerney, Legal Counsel, Mr. Doug Davis, Teamster Local 27 Vice President and UPS Aircraft Maintenance Controller, Brian Metzmeyer to my right, Teamster Local 27 Systems Group Investigator and UPS Aircraft Maintenance Technician, and Mr. Jim Cocking, Teamsters Local 27 Structures Group Investigator and a UPS Aircraft Maintenance Technician.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landis. And ST Engineering, San Antonio Aerospace.
Good morning, Chairwoman Hamady and board members. We also offer our condolences to the families of this tragic incident, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this investigation. To my right is our legal counsel, David Harrington. To his right is Daniel Perez, our SMS manager. Across from Daniel is Gary Mosier, who is our Director of Quality. And across from me is Yip Hin Ming. He is our Executive Vice President of ST Engineering. And my name is Chris Hentz. I am the Vice President of MRO Operations in San Antonio.
Thank you, Mr. Hentz. United Parcel Service, or UPS.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good morning. I'm Captain David Smith, Vice President of Airline Safety. On behalf of the entire UPS Airlines team, we mourn the loss of our 3 pilots, Captain Richard Wartenberg, First Officer Lee Truitt, and Captain Dana Diamond. The 12 members of the Louisville community who lost their lives: Angela Anderson, Carlos Fernandez, Kimberly Asa, Trina Chavez, Tony Crane, Luinas Fanon, John Lokes, Elaine Rodriguez, John Spray, Matthew Sweets, Megan Washburn, and Ella Wharton, along with those who may have suffered an injury or loss to their property or business. We are profoundly saddened by this tragedy. Our thoughts are with their families, friends, and loved ones, and with the first responders and the Louisville community who carried the weight of this tragedy. With me today, sitting across from me and moving clockwise around the table, Mr. Paul Kane, Senior Director of Line Maintenance and Director of Maintenance. Captain Jacob Chambers, Flight Safety Investigator and Investigation Party Coordinator. Captain Paul Lowcraft, MD-11 Fleet Chief Pilot. Mr. Tony Haven, Maintenance Safety Investigator. And Mr. Mark Dumbroff, Legal Counsel. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Captain Smith. As a reminder, only the designated party spokesperson may question the witnesses. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank the witnesses testifying at this hearing in support of aviation safety. Witnesses will be questioned under oath. They will remain under oath until the conclusion of the entire hearing. A witness can be called to testify on either panel. Further, witnesses may be recalled for further questioning at any time during the hearing. Usually when that happens, there's a question that was asked that requires somebody else to answer and might be recalled at that point. As such, we ask that all witnesses be present for the entire hearing unless you've coordinated in advance with the hearing officer, which is Mr. Shin. The witnesses have been selected based on their ability to provide the best available information on safety issues that are pertinent to this investigation. The witness list was agreed to by parties to the hearing, NTSB staff serving on the technical panels, and the Board of Inquiry at a pre-hearing conference held last week, May 12th, here in the NTSB boardroom. We have pre-qualified each witness by documenting their qualifications in writing. You may review each witness's biographical information in the public docket, which opened this morning. I'd now like to provide a general overview of the hearing. Those in the room may wish to refer to the printed agenda. We expect the proceedings to conclude around 6 p.m. today. I do want to caution on that 6 p.m. We are not going to have another investigative hearing, and I don't like to rush people. So if parties have additional questions, if the Board of Inquiry has additional questions, if the technical panel has additional questions, I want to make sure that everybody has time to ask their questions. We don't get another shot at that. So it may go beyond that. Hopefully we have AC. Given the last one. I've now panicked everyone. We will break for lunch as needed throughout. Speaking of which, I walked around and mentioned, including to the witnesses, if you need anything, if you need water, if you need a break, If you, whatever you might need, just signal to me. They don't have phones or electronics up there, but, it's certainly hot with the lights, so if you need some time, need a breather, please feel free to ask. I'm gonna be very flexible. Just wave me down. Yoo-hoo is fine. And I will pay attention and make sure that we do take that break at the appropriate time. Tomorrow we'll begin promptly at 8 a.m. again and wrap up around 1. Again, these times are approximate and we appreciate everyone's flexibility. The specific issues we'll explore at this hearing were finalized and agreed to at last week's pre-hearing conference. So today we'll start with fleet safety processes. We'll discuss the reporting processes for anomalies found during maintenance and inspections. Then we'll explore the Federal Aviation Administration and Boeing's continued operational safety program and processes, and end with communications to operators after continued operational safety determinations. Tomorrow we'll discuss pylon design requirements. First we'll delve into Federal Aviation Administration Part 25 design and certification requirements for pylon separation failure modes. Then we'll examine the design of aircraft systems routed through and near pylon attachment points. The hearing process will be the same for both panels, all panels actually. After an introduction from Mr. Shin, we'll move into witness testimony. The witnesses will be questioned in the following order. First, by the NTSB technical panel, that's staff. Next, by the parties to the hearing, and then by the Board of Inquiry. I'll then circle back to the technical panel for any remaining follow-up questions because something we asked might spur another question for you. And if we need to continue and go a second round, we will do that. Again, I'm not going to rush it. When it's time for party questions, I'll recognize each organization one by one. Each party will keep their questions to 5 minutes or less. We have a timer to help you stay on track. Given that there are 5 parties to the hearing, we certainly have time to accommodate 2 rounds. If we need additional rounds, I'll accommodate it. And that goes for all topics on both panels. If a party spokesperson has a concern regarding a question asked or wishes to discuss admissibility of an exhibit or the pertinence of proffered testimony, please raise your hand. After being recognized by me, you will have the opportunity to voice your concern. I'll consult with Mr. Johnson, our legal counsel, and in accordance with our regulations, make all rulings on such matters. All rulings will be final. I will also consult with Mr. Shin on those. A word about conduct. The board does not permit cross-examination of witnesses in the legal sense, nor do we permit questions related to fault, outside litigation, or legal liability. Such questions are not relevant to the fact-finding purposes of an NTSB investigative hearing or our statutory mission. This doesn't mean difficult questions won't be asked. They will be, and they should be. This is an investigation. We are here to improve safety, and that is our sole focus. Mr. Shin will now describe the exhibits.
Thank you. Exhibits for this hearing include reports produced by NTSB investigative staff, videos, and other documents submitted by the technical panel members, witnesses, and parties to support testimony and questions you will hear today and tomorrow. The exhibits for this hearing are in the docket, which opened this morning to the public. A link to the docket is on our website, ntsb.gov. The docket can be accessed using the accident investigation number DCA 26MA024. That's Delta Charlie Alpha 26 Mike Alpha 024. If you've joined us in person, you can scan the QR code on the hearing agenda. This will take you to the investigation page, and a link to the docket is on the right-hand side just below the map. The NTSB is authorized by statute to disclose information to carry out its mission, but we protect confidentiality and proprietary information to the extent possible. As such, exhibits contain redactions. These are the result of negotiations between parties and the NTSB regarding the disclosure of information claimed to be personally identifiable, security sensitive, or proprietary in nature. Though redacted, the exhibits contain sufficient information so that members of the public can follow along during the hearing and refer to them. The exhibits entered into the record and any presentations, along with other records of the investigation, become part of the NTSB public docket, which remain available via ntsb.gov. We provide party spokespersons and witnesses with electronic copies of these exhibits in advance for the sole purpose of preparation for this hearing. A transcript of the testimony will be taken during the hearing and will be prepared and entered into the docket as soon as possible. Mr. Eric Johnson will keep a list of additional documents admitted during the proceedings. We will add these documents to the docket after the hearing concludes. As a reminder, new exhibits are only admitted if the chair determines good cause has been shown, as outlined in Title 49, Code of Federal Regulations, or CFR, Section 845.9. While the parties do not participate in the analysis of evidence, parties can submit written comments for our consideration. This is where parties can state their views for the record, such as potential conclusions that may be drawn. We strongly encourage the parties to submit written comments, which are beneficial to our analysis. Our regulations provide two separate opportunities for parties to do so. First, parties to this investigative hearing may submit comments on the hearing per 49 CFR 845.13. Following the investigative hearing, any party to the hearing may submit proposed findings to be drawn from the testimony, exhibits, a proposed probable cause, and proposed safety recommendations designed to prevent future accidents and incidents. The proposals shall be submitted within the time specified by the investigative hearing officer at the close of the hearing and shall be made part of the public docket. Parties to the investigative hearing shall serve copies on their proposals on all other parties to the hearing. So such comments are due to me, the hearing officer, within 30 calendar days of the close of the hearing or by June 19th, 2026. We ask that submissions be sent to us electronically. Second, parties to the investigation as a whole may submit comments through the traditional party submission process outlined in 49 CFR 831.14. Quote, any party to the investigation may submit to the NTSB written proposed findings to be drawn from the evidence produced during the course of the investigation, a proposed probable cause, and/or proposed safety recommendations designed to prevent future accidents. I will provide a date for the submission at a later date for this one. All party submissions will be included in the public docket. As mentioned, we will consider party comments during the analysis phase of the investigation and in our preparation of the final report. Chairwoman Hamidi, that concludes my remarks on the hearing exhibits and procedures.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chin. And we'll go to you for your presentation in just a second. I'm just going to, for everyone's benefit in the audience watching online and for everyone here, I just want to go through the specifics on at least right up until lunch. So we will have questions from the technical panel starting shortly. Might run an hour, hour and a half, depending on what time you need. We'll take a break right after that, and then we'll go to party questions. We'll start with 2 rounds. If we need to come back later, we'll do that. We'll start with FAA, and then we'll go to Boeing, UPS, Teamsters, STE, San Antonio Aerospace, and then we will do the Board of Inquiry questions right after that. If we need to take a break between the two, we'll go, at least for the witnesses, we'll go ahead and do that. Also, it can get hot. It's going to get hot. These lights are hot. We all look very formal today, even though I told you all you could wear your shirts. Teamsters were in uniform the other day. I'll tell Sean O'Brien that you were in your suits. But listen, if you want to take your jackets off, we are not that formal. Go ahead. It is going to get hot. Same for the witnesses, okay? And again, if you need water or anything, let us know. Mr. Shin, go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present an overview of the accident to the Board of Inquiry. On November 4th, 2025, UPS Flight 2976, a Boeing MD-11F, registration November 259, uniform Papa, was destroyed after it crashed during takeoff from Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, Louisville, Kentucky. Flight 2976 was a domestic cargo flight to Honolulu and took off from runway 17 right. Surveillance video showed the left engine and pylon separated after takeoff rotation. The accident airplane continued takeoff and climbed to about 30 feet above ground level, or AGL. The separated left engine and pylon were found adjacent to runway 17 right. The airplane's landing gear contacted a building roof south of the runway and subsequently impacted buildings and the ground about 17:14 Eastern Standard Time. The 3 crew members aboard were fatally injured. 11 people on the ground sustained fatal injuries, 2 people on the ground sustained serious injuries, and 21 people on the ground sustained minor injuries. 1 person who was seriously injured succumbed to their injuries 51 days after the accident. A 5-minute-long animation will provide an overview of the design of the pylon assembly, which is the same for the MD-11 and the 11F, which is the freighter version. The animation will detail the fatigue cracking found on the accident left wing pylon components, how these cracks ultimately resulted in separation of the left pylon and engine shortly after takeoff rotation during the accident flight. An airport surveillance video that captured the left pylon and engine separation will be shown at the end of the animation. We realize that some attendees and remote viewers may find this animation difficult to watch. We will pause before starting the animation to allow those currently in the boardroom to leave for the duration of the animation or turn away from your screens if you're viewing remotely. We will inform you when the animation has finished playing. Please play the animation.
This animation illustrates the construction of the MD-11F aircraft engine attachments and presents investigative findings regarding the separation of the left engine. The MD-11F has 3 engines, 2 wing-mounted and 1 tail-mounted. The left and right engines attach to the wings through a structure called a pylon, highlighted in blue. This illustration shows the frame of the pylon, which connects to the wing at 3 attachment points: the pylon aft mount, the pylon forward mount, and the thrust fitting, which is behind the pylon forward mount. This 3-dimensional model of the pylon aft mount will be used to explain the details of the attachment and how it failed in the accident. The aft mount consists of 2 triangular-shaped plates which are bolted together. The pylon aft mount is attached to a wing clevis located on the underside of the wing structure. At the top of the plates forming the aft mount are the forward lug and the aft lug, which fit into the wing clevis. The connection is made with a bolt, which passes through a bushing and is secured by a nut. The bushing is secured with a collar. The bushing features a grease fitting connected to internal passageways that channel grease throughout the assembly. The assembly includes a spherical bearing housed within the forward and aft lugs at the upper end of the aft mount. The spherical bearing is comprised of a monoball that sits within a one-piece outer race, which conforms to the spherical shape of the ball and distributes loads uniformly across the aft mount lugs. The monoball can rotate and move slightly within the outer race. This movement is designed to reduce stress in the assembly as the engine weight aerodynamic forces, and engine thrust loads flex the structure during normal operations. The monoball contains shallow grooves on its inner and outer surfaces with 3 equally spaced holes to distribute grease. The outer race also contains a shallow groove on its inner surface to help with grease distribution. This lubrication groove is approximately 1/4 inch wide, centered along the width of the race, and extends around the circumference of the inner surface. The outer race from the accident showed fatigue cracking initiating from several locations around the inner surface at both the forward and aft corners of this lubrication groove. The fatigue cracks grew outward over time through the outer race thickness. Eventually, the fatigue cracks at the forward corner of the groove grew large enough for the outer race to split into 2 pieces. With the outer race separated into 2 pieces, loads were no longer evenly distributed across the lugs. The 2 pieces of the separated outer race could be forced out of the bore of the lugs, resulting in abnormal loading on the lugs. Fatigue cracks initiated within the bore of both lugs at both the inboard and the outboard sides. These fatigue cracks grew outward through the lugs. During the accident flight, the lugs could no longer carry the load and completely fractured at the inboard side, then bent and separated at the outboard side. With the pylon aft mount lugs fractured, the aft end of the pylon was no longer attached to the wing clevis. The remaining 2 pylon connections subsequently failed, resulting in separation of the left pylon and engine from the airplane during takeoff. A surveillance video at the airport captured the takeoff rotation and separation of the left pylon and engine from the accident airplane.
The animation has finished playing. UPS's MD-11 maintenance program required a 72-month general visual inspection and detailed visual inspection of the pylon while it remained installed on the wing. These inspections were last accomplished on the accident airplane on October 28, 2021 by ST Engineering, San Antonio Aerospace. A 24-month, 4,800-hour lubrication task required lubrication of the pylon spherical bearings and thrust links while the pylon remained installed on the wing. This lubrication task was last accomplished on the accident airplane on October 18, 2025, also by STE San Antonio Aerospace. At a high level, a continued operational safety or COS program receives in-service data of failures, malfunctions, and defects. These data include service difficulty reports, or SDRs, and reports to Boeing from operators. A COS program will analyze the data to determine if an unsafe condition exists. After a COS determination, corrective actions and a timeline to implement these actions are selected. These corrective actions include service letters and airworthiness directives. This slide depicts a timeline of the history of reported bearing outer race fractures found on MD-11 airplanes, along with other milestones related to these findings. Investigators found 9 separate operator reports totaling 10 instances of fractured and migrated pylon aft bearing outer races that preceded this accident. These 9 reports were spread across 4 different operators and all involved MD-11 and MD-11F airplanes. In July 2008, STE San Antonio Aerospace reported to UPS and Boeing that they found a fractured and separated outer race staking ring on a pylon aft mount bearing. However, the staking ring is a retention feature of the outer race to keep the bearing within the lug bore and is a different failure mode than that of the accident bearing outer race fracture. Investigators found only 2 of these reports, September 2007 and July 2008, had a cost identifier associated with it. No cost identifiers were found for the remaining reports of fractured and migrated bearing races. The cost analysis of these 2 reports by Boeing determined the bearing failure mode would not result in a safety of flight condition. There was no record the FAA disagreed with this cost determination. In May 2008, Boeing issued a service letter that informed operators that the bearing race fracture and migration found in service and a new inspection procedure for the bearing outer race migration was added to the aircraft maintenance manual. On February 2011, Boeing released Revision A of this service letter, which added information about a redesigned spherical bearing that eliminated the lubrication groove within the bearing outer race. Investigators found that UPS had reviewed these service letters and determined no further action was required. Panel 1 of this investigative hearing will focus on fleet safety processes. This panel will delve into 3 primary topic areas. First, reporting processes for anomalies found during inspection and maintenance. Second, FAA and Boeing continued operational safety processes, including FAA and Boeing cost working agreements. And third, communications to operators after cost actions are completed. Investigators reviewed a McDonnell Douglas DC-10 accident that occurred on May 25, 1979. The airplane crashed after takeoff at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. The NTSB investigation determined that the left engine and pylon separated during takeoff due to improper maintenance. The airplane climbed to about 300 feet above ground level. The airplane experienced an asymmetric stall and left roll due to uncommanded retraction of the left wing leading edge slats caused by severed hydraulic lines when the pylon and separated from the left wing. The MD-11 is based on the design of the DC-10 and incorporates design changes based on some of the lessons learned from the 1979 accident in Chicago O'Hare. For UPS Flight 2976, after the pylon separation occurred, investigators found that the leading edge slats remained extended as designed. However, a fire ignited on the left wing and continued until ground impact, which was different than the 1979 DC-10 accident. The airplane attitude remained level through the remainder of the accident flight, but the airplane only climbed to about 30 feet above ground level. The NTSB airplane performance study remains ongoing. Panel 2 of this investigative hearing will focus on pylon design requirements. This panel will delve into 2 primary topic areas. First, FAA design certification requirements for pylon separation failure modes, and second, the design of aircraft systems such as fuel and hydraulic lines that are routed through and near pylon attachment points. 4 days after the UPS 2976 accident, the FAA grounded the MD-11 fleet, followed by the DC-10 and MD-10 fleets 6 days after, affecting over 70 airplanes. In the weeks after the accident, inspections were conducted on MD-11, DC-10, and MD-10 airplanes, focused on finding aft-mount spherical bearings that exhibited migrated outer races. 3 migrated bearing races were found on MD-11 airplanes, all from the UPS fleet. 1 migrated bearing race was found on a DC-10 airplane. Examination of the lugs of one of UPS's findings revealed a gap between the forward and aft lugs at their top ends. Additionally, surface inspection of these lugs confirmed the presence of cracks at the inboard and outboard sides of the aft lug. NTSB was notified of the accident shortly after it occurred on the afternoon of November 4th, 2025, and a GO team was launched the next morning. Former board member Todd Inman was the NTSB spokesperson on scene, and the following 2 slides list the NTSB staff that assisted in the initial response and are supporting the ongoing investigation. NTSB invited qualified parties to participate in the investigation as shown on this slide. Chairwoman Hamidi, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Shin. And I also want to thank Alice Park and Mike Meadows for doing that excellent video. I think we all believe they did a very good job. So thank you for that. We're going to turn to panel 1, fleet safety processes. We introduced the members of the technical panel earlier. So Mr. Shin, please introduce the topics and the witnesses.
Thank you. This panel will address fleet safety processes in 3 sections. And this morning, we're starting with operator reporting processes for anomalies found during maintenance and inspections. Specifically, we will question the witnesses in the following issue areas: maintenance manual inspection instructions, reporting processes to UPS quality assurance, UPS reporting to Boeing and the Federal Aviation Administration, and Federal Aviation Administration reporting requirements for Part 121 operators. The witness panel is composed of the following individuals. Starting in the first row, nearest to the board members, we have Mr. Danny Wu, Manager of the Commercial Aircraft Group, Flight Standard Service, Federal Aviation Administration, Mr. Brian Knopp, Manager of the Continued Operational Safety Branch, Federal Aviation Administration, Mr. David Springer, Senior Director of Engineering at UPS, Mr. Shannon Deckard, Director of Quality Assurance at UPS, and Mr. Henry Gallegos, Director of Engineering, STE San Antonio Aerospace. In the second row, starting from the closest to the board members, we have Dr. Melanie Violet, Technical Advisor for Continued Operational Safety, Federal Aviation Administration, Mr. Scott Hirsch, Senior Director of Boeing Commercial Airplanes Fleet Operations, Boeing, Mr. Justin Konopask, Director of Airframe Service Engineering, Boeing, and Mr. Clint Dickens, Maintenance Controller, Teamsters. Chairwoman Hamidi, these witnesses have been pre-qualified and their respective experience and qualifications appear in the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Shin. I'll now ask the witnesses to please stand. Thank you, and I know you're kind of squished up there in the front row, but if you can raise your right hand, please answer by saying, "I do." Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this hearing will be the truth? Thank you. You may be seated. And just a reminder for the witnesses, I know that you already spoke to your party spokespersons and your teams. You'll remain under oath until the conclusion of the hearing, and we ask that you answer the questions factually. Please avoid analysis, and please also avoid anything that is speculative. Don't speculate. In fact, I don't know, if you don't know, is a perfectly okay answer. You can also say you could get back to us in writing if there's something you're not sure about. But I want to, just remind you of those. Finally, push the microphone button to talk and push it again when finished. And if you need a break, just flag me down. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Clint Crookshanks.
Thank you, Chairwoman Hamidi. My first few questions are going to be for the FAA. First off, what is the FAA's definition of a structural defect or anomaly that occurs in service? And by in service, we mean those that occur once the aircraft has received type certification and is in operation with an air carrier.
Good morning. Can we please call up exhibit? Oh, I'm sorry. Good morning. Can we please call up exhibit 7V, Victor, slide 2. So Title 14, Code of Federal.
One. Yes.
Am I the wrong one?
Yeah. That's for the. Thank you. That's the right one.
Oh, there you go. So Title 14, Code of Federal Regulations 121.703 for air carriers.
Sorry, would you mind pulling it a little bit closer?
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
No.
Just pull it up. Yep. There we go. Thank
Okay.
you.
Title 14 Code of Federal Regulations 121.703, that's for air carriers. For reportable structural items, it designates aircraft structure that require major repair and cracks, permanent deformation, or corrosion of aircraft structure if more than the maximum acceptable to the manufacturer or the FAA.
Thank you. Could you also please tell us what the requirements are for 145 repair stations, please?
Yes, sir. For 145-221 for repair stations is any serious failure, malfunction, or defect of an article.
Thank you. Next, can you please tell us what is a service difficulty report, or SDR?
Let's see here. Can I call up slide or exhibit 7W, slide 3, and maybe slide 2? I apologize if I got that wrong. Perfect, thank you. So an SDR is a report submitted to the FAA used to identify failures, malfunctions, or defects in aeronautical products that affect or could affect the safe operation of aircraft.
Okay, thanks. A couple more definitions. Can you tell us what is the FAA definition of primary structure?
Yes, sir. Can I have call up exhibit 7V, that it is in Victor, slide 4? So primary structure is defined in FAA Advisory Circular 25.1529-1A. Primary structure is structure that significantly contributes to the carrying of flight, ground, or pressure loads. It is also known as a structural significant item, SSI.
Okay, and to follow up, please define what is a principal structural element.
Yes, sir. A principal structural element, or PSE, are those elements of primary structure which contribute significantly to carrying flight, ground, and pressurization loads, and whose failure could result in catastrophic failure of the airplane.
Thank you, Mr. Wu. Now that we have those definitions out of the way, we're going to turn to Mr. Johnson, who has some questions for UPS.
Good morning. My questions are to give you a time frame, are based at the time of the accident. So when responding, please use the time of the accident as your reference point. Please briefly describe the type of maintenance that UPS performed in-house on the MD-11 aircraft.
I'll let my colleague, Mr. Deckard, take this question. Good morning. UPS internally performs line maintenance in our gateway operations, and we subcontract out to a third-party major maintenance, or heavy maintenance as known in the industry, to a third-party vendor.
Okay, thank you. Please describe UPS's maintenance program as it reflects the aft or pylon aft bulkheads on the MD-11 aircraft.
I'll give an overview of the maintenance program for the pylon aft bulkhead. There are 4 scheduled tasks associated with the pylon aft bulkhead. So we'll start from the highest level, and we'll get into the most detailed. It starts with a general visual inspection that's of the area or the zone of the pylon. That's accomplished every C check. Also accomplished every C check is a lubrication task, which involves lubricating the joint between the lug and the clevis that was illustrated in the opening presentation. Going deeper into the inspection task associated with the aft pylon, or the pylon aft bulkhead, is a general visual inspection that calls out paying particular attention to the lugs. That's accomplished every 72 months in our maintenance program. Also, we have a detailed visual inspection of the aft bulkhead that's also accomplished every 72 months.
Do you believe prior to the accident, do you believe that the inspections were adequate?
Our maintenance program was based upon the Boeing MD-11 maintenance planning document, or MPD inspections, which included both the general visual inspections and the detailed inspection, which is an intensive examination of the area that were being done every 72 months.
So is that a yes, you believe it was appropriate, adequate?
Yes, the visual inspections of the area, both general visual, detailed, were the inspections we were doing.
All right. What is UPS's definition of a structural defect?
Our definition of a structural defect would align with the SDR criteria, which is cracks, permanent deformation, corrosion, and could include other discrepancies to structures such as chafing, galling, other types of damage along those lines.
All right. Can you please explain the UPS process when a structural defect is found on an airplane?
How far would you like to go through that process?
As far as you would like to go.
Through the whole process.
I'll review the process, starting with the defect being found by the aircraft maintenance technician, and I'll roll through what happens when they look at existing manuals, and then if it's outside the manuals, the interfaces that occur with the vendor engineering, UPS engineering, and the manufacturer. Can we pull up Exhibit 11, Alpha, page 6, which is UPS, major maintenance vendor, and Boeing fault communication? I'll walk through the process here. This is a simplified flow chart of what happens. When we're executing a scheduled task, when an aircraft maintenance technician is in the area and identifies an item that's out of the norm, so that could be cracks, corrosion, anything that's out of the norm, they would record that as a fault. So I'm going to use fault, discrepancy, defect synonymously. Fault is a newer term with our current maintenance information system, where we electronically record faults, discrepancies, or defects. The first decision point, once it's recorded and identified, is, and when an aircraft maintenance technician will then go into the manual system. This could be our structural repair manual, aircraft maintenance manual. They'll look to see if there's any guidance that would allow the damage to continue as is within allowable limits. If the answer is yes, then they can use the manual, the published manual procedure, to address the defect. If not, it flows on down through the chart as we see here. And then we get into, can it be repaired? This would, when I say repaired, this would be a restoration, a reinforcing type repair. Does the SRM allow that? If the SRM provides a repair procedure, then the AMT could execute that repair per the structural repair manual. If it's outside the manuals, the aircraft maintenance manual or the structural repair manual, then we get into engineering assistance. So I'm going to use our process that we utilize with ST Engineering and all of our third-party airframe maintenance vendors. It's a collaborative process with the legwork being done by the vendor engineering that's on site. So as you can see, the blue area, this is the area that we have a dedicated UPS engineering team, our major maintenance engineering support team, that's working directly with the vendors engineering to develop a repair, submit that proposed repair to Boeing, get Boeing review of it and approval of it, and then it comes back. That process could be iterative, obviously, as you work out a repair. But our aircraft engineering team, our major maintenance team, is in collaboration with the vendor engineering team all the way through their final development of the document. When they provide their final document that's approved and it has all the correct, acceptable, or approved data for the repair, then UPS will provide their own approval of that in our system via an engineering order. Part of that engineering order provides the approval of the repair being accomplished. It also includes any follow-on actions. Since we're talking about structural defects, a lot of times you will have follow-on inspections, damage-tolerant inspections that will occur later in a repair's life. So we will document those so those are properly tracked.
Thank you. How is that process that you just described different if it's primary structure or a principal structural element?
The repair flow, whether it's primary or PSE, flows basically the same way. Where it will get different is if we're on a primary structure or PSE and it's outside manual limits, that will always route through Boeing for approvals if it's a reinforcing repair. Approximately 80% of our major maintenance repairs flow through the Boeing system. And we get into also classifications that are associated with. Most of our reinforcing repairs, or technically all of our reinforcing repairs associated with primary structure or PSEs, requires FAA approval, and we heavily rely on Boeing for that FAA approval.
How does this process differ if it's secondary structure?
Secondary structure, we have other avenues to provide repairs internally as well as with external approval. So with secondary structure, we only are required to have acceptable data as the authorizing data for the repair. So we get into a differentiation of what's acceptable data and approved data. So for secondary structure, we can approve those with acceptable data. What does acceptable data mean in our system? We can use Boeing messages for secondary structure. We can use a document called an RDR, Repair Design, an acronym I'm not dialed in on. But we also can generate acceptable data internally with our engineering authority. So we can develop an engineering substantiation following our procedures that's considered acceptable data to authorize a repair to secondary structure.
Okay, so now that the damage has been identified or the defect has been identified, what UPS documents are generated for structural defects?
For structural defects, you know, we talked about the general process. So obviously we get into, and we'll go back to the 2008 timeframe. In 2008, 2011 timeframe, we were in a paper system still. So if a discrepancy was identified, you would have a non-routine card, looking at the heavy maintenance, you'd have a non-routine card generated. If the repair occurred per a manual, that was documented on the non-routine card. So it was all contained in the non-routine card. If it was outside of the manual, there would both be a vendor repair document and a UPS engineering order authorizing the third party, the vendor engineering document.
All right, one follow-up from my previous question, and that was, would the lugs and bearing for the aft bulkhead on the pylon be considered PSE? Principal structural element?
The lugs would have been considered PSE. They are identified in the structural repair manual as such, as part of the overall bulkhead assembly. The bearing itself being hardware, how we would classify that, it's hardware that could be removed and replaced. I do not believe we would have considered that a PSE.
How does UPS comply with the reporting requirements of 121.703 in the CFR?
I'll review how we comply with 121.703. We have a slide that's Exhibit 11AA, page 13. And Mr. Johnson, do you still want this to be the 2008, 2011 timeframe for answering this question?
That's fine.
The process we have outlined here is actually our current process, but there's still similarities to what we were doing. There's been very little change over the last 18 years. So we comply with 14 CFR 121.703. We mirror that criteria. That criteria has basically, we have a copy and paste of that right into our general maintenance manual. So when a fault is identified, the main source for identifying whether or not that's an SDR flows through the aircraft maintenance technician. We have a specific section in our general maintenance manual that is trained to with those criteria. It would get marked, back in the day, it would get marked in a different, maintenance information system. Back then it would be a system we called impacts. It would get marked in. That would flow to our engineering standards team that would review that to make sure it met the criteria and basically compile those for accuracy and basically a quality audit before submitting those to the FAA. The change over time as we've moved from one maintenance information system to a newer maintenance information system, which was a 2023 changeover. We now have our engineering standards team is able to review certain subject areas to provide a second level of detection or identification of items that could be SDRs. Once that is all compiled, it is uploaded to the SDR system, the FAA SDR system. We also give a courtesy copy of that to the FAA Certification Management Office that oversees us. The other item that's related to this that's part of our training per our general maintenance manual is when we're working with our third-party maintenance provider that's providing our C-checks. Our manual requires that all SDR identify items flow through our system so that we are the ones that have visibility and submit them. And that's what we train to and expect of our third-party maintenance provider.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
could you pause for a second? Just for the purpose of the Board of Inquiry and the technical staff, were there any differences to this? And can you just point out where any differences were between '08 and '11?
Between '08 and '11, the process would have been the same, which really would have been the main focus because being in a more paper-based system would really have been across the top line where the AMT and the maintenance team would have been responsible for really identifying those. While the lower section still had that ability, that has improved over time since 2008 to 2011 as we've changed over our maintenance information system.
Okay, to follow up, you said that you guys notify your principal maintenance inspector of every SDR that you submit to the FAA database. Is that correct?
That is correct. We provide a courtesy copy of the submission. The same table that we've submitted and uploaded into the SDR system is provided to our certificate management office.
Do you ever receive feedback from your certificate management team about SDRs that you filed?
Yes, we have routine interaction with the office as they perform surveillance over the documentation that we provide. It's not uncommon at all for them to ask about an aircraft maintenance visit and associated records with that, ensuring that we are following the process of what qualifies to be submitted or not, as well as the documentation that was performed in the repair. So that is fairly routine interaction with our local certificate management office based in Louisville.
Do you ever notify Boeing of filed SDR information?
Looking back specifically at SDRs, we do not provide them holistically to Boeing. One of the, I referenced the maintenance planning document. Part of the structural part of the maintenance planning document that and the requirement that we carry over into our manuals is that structural discrepancies found with the maintenance program are submitted via the SDR system. The only time Boeing would be aware of a related item would be if we work typically, if we work a repair with them, that would be the main source of documentation coming into the communication system for Boeing.
Do you ever query the service difficulty report database looking for items related to your fleet?
No. Up until recently, we have always used that as a reporting system. We have not used that as a input or a resource to understand what is happening in the overall industry associated with a fleet we operate.
All right. Going back to structural defects, who within UPS can document a structural defect?
The way our GMM is written, our general maintenance manual, we have a defect identification and reporting section. So that could be anyone performing a maintenance operation, whether, as previously mentioned, in a line maintenance operation or in a heavy maintenance operation where we utilize the third parties. Both maintenance arenas are trained to the same standard on how to identify a defect and what the reporting requirements are.
Okay, where is a structural defect documented at UPS?
It is documented in the maintenance information system.
Okay. Who would analyze a defect that was reported? Is there any system within UPS where someone looks at the overall submissions and analyzes for trends or problems?
There are a lot of interfaces that would help with the identifying of the trends that we have in the related to structural defects. You know, we have several reports that happen that are pushed to our structural engineering team that can include our corrosion prevention and control weekly report. We also have an ALI biweekly report for airworthiness limitation items if there was any findings associated with a maintenance program task that's looking for fatigue through the ALI. We also have daily communication between our major maintenance team, our team that provides oversight in our third parties, and those daily meetings include our major maintenance team, the vendor team, and our Louisville-based engineering team that supports major maintenance. In our current environment with our new MIS, the engineers have the ability now to watch an aircraft real time to see what's open during a C check and to be monitoring structural defects that are recorded as faults. That division again is really fall of 2003 when we moved to a new system, as opposed to pre-2003 when we were still using more of a paper-based non-routine system. So that's the way we're monitoring and the interfaces that we utilize to identify any trends that are happening as far as structural defects.
So you said your structures engineering group would be monitoring that and analyzing?
Yes, so we have two different groups that are involved with the aircraft structures. We have our major maintenance support team that's providing the collaboration and approval of all repairs that are being accomplished in the C-check environment at our third parties. We also have our structural engineers that are embedded as part of our fleet teams. So there's interaction from our major maintenance, the actual maintenance side, the major maintenance on the engineering side that's supporting it, and then back to our fleet teams that are fleet specific.
So what is done with the analysis when it's been completed?
If we identify trends, there's a couple things that can happen. I talked a little bit about corrosion prevention and control. That's a representation of the process where we've identified a trend. We develop a corrective action, which could involve issuing an engineering order to do a specific action. It could involve an adjustment to our program, and that's representative of any structural defect. Once we see the trend, we can go in, decide if it's something that we want to come up with a procedure, inspection, or a change to be proactive and get ahead of the issue with an engineering order, or if it's an area that we think we need to monitor through scheduled tasks, we have the ability to also steer that into our maintenance program.
A little bit of a follow-on. Once structural defects are collected and analyzed, what is done with the information? How is it being used within UPS?
Once there's a trend identified, there would be action taken on it. The way that we follow that kind of from a reliability analysis procedure, if there's not a item that's led to trending, usually once we have a trend, that's when we are taking action on it. If there's not any trends, there's really not any action that's taken because there's nothing that's been identified.
All right, let me ask a different way. Does that information ever make it into your continuous analysis? Wow, I just drew a blank. Your CAS system?
Yes, it does. And I'll explain a little bit further. If we could pull up Exhibit 11 Alpha Alpha. page 3, and then we'll move to 4. So if we could go one page prior to, please. Thank you. We have a safety management system that I'll talk about, and then I will get into answering the CAS question, or the continuing analysis surveillance system piece, a little bit deeper on the next slide. The UPS compliance with the regulations is our minimum level of safety. When we received FAA approval of our SMS system, we've adapted our program to achieve the highest level of safety, and I'll get into explaining it a little bit further. As a regulatory Part 5 requirement, we established our SMS system in 2017 and have continued to mature it by adding critical data, if you will, feeding the machine. The program consists of the 4 pillars described on the screen. The 2 that we'll focus in on further are the safety risk management and safety assurance, which is where the CAS, or the continuing analysis surveillance system, resides, which is also a regulatory requirement for a Part 121 air carrier to establish a CAS as well. Our CAS accomplishes surveillance and analysis of our maintenance and inspection program by verifying performance and design and effectiveness of our continuous airworthiness maintenance program. It's designed and incorporates a system safety approach for sustaining safe operation of the UPS aircraft. On the next slide, this slide shows a variety of inputs that go into our CAS program. We acquire the data, input it into the SMS or the CAS program. CAS again resides within SMS. And as shown in the flow diagram in the upper right-hand corner, it starts with the data collection. And that's a key piece, as I previously mentioned, to feed the machine. The data has to go in for the rest of the blocks to follow through with the process. You can see it moves from data collection to an analysis. Once root cause is understood from the analysis itself, corrective actions are put in place. Then lastly, as far as the flow goes, we have verification of effectiveness. We want to make sure that the corrective actions are working as designed to prevent future recurrence. But notice there's an arrow that continues right back to data collection. The system never sleeps. It's a closed loop design. It's constantly running in the background all the time. The various inputs are described on the screen. And if you really think about this at the high level, you've got auditing and surveillance activity is half of the CAS program. The other half is the reliability inputs. Under the reliability inputs is where we get into the maintenance information system that we've been talking about, or the faults which get generated from the maintenance activity, recorded, and then fed in to the process itself. I referred to earlier the auditing that occurs. We not only audit ourselves as a requirement within our CAS program, but we also have surveillance of this entire CAS process that's performed by the FAA, as well as the Department of War and the IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association's safety operational audit. So we take not only internal analysis of how we're performing and executing our program into consideration through this process, but we also add in any letters or findings that may occur, as I mentioned, from external entities such as the FAA or the other external parties.
With all that said, how do you track action items?
Within the reliability side of the house, we have tracking through corrective action plans, and we identify those with the commitment or the deliverable, when that time frame will be completed as far as implementation goes, and then follow through to verify that they were in fact implemented, as well as that they are actually working. We do the same process on the audit side within CAS.
And with that, who has primary responsibility for oversight of the action items being implemented?
The owner of the area is responsible for their specific corrective action, and then CAS, which reports back up through me in my position, as responsibility for the quality and the effectiveness of our CAS program.
How often are status updates given on action items?
As often as is needed based on the timeline for completion. Some actions may be implemented within a couple of weeks, and some may take a while to procure and or build and add into manual processes, revisions to those programs, train individuals on the new process. Sometimes that can take months. So we will keep them open, and we track those in our database until they are fully closed out. And we have a routine report that goes out every week on what remains open, and we account for every open action item through closure in a monthly report as well.
And we've kind of described what happens internally. How is that communicated externally to, let's say, vendors or major maintenance providers?
Yes, so the responsible party within the quality system sends out notifications of when the corrective action plans are due. And then all the way up through closure, an email is sent out for formal notification to the party that is responsible for answering and providing the corrective action plan documentation back to the CAS team. And we also communicate those out, and we talk about what is currently open in our processes in our CAS quarterly meetings as well.
Has UPS ever received any feedback from an outside vendor on this process and the results of a finding?
Yes, the overall corrective action plan process, we're constantly looking for process improvement opportunities. So we make sure that our communications are clear and what the expected deliverables are. We have meetings that support that to ensure at the end of the day, once we receive the corrective action plan, it meets our expectations. So we put emphasis on that up front at a formal, in a formal meeting when the corrective action plan is assigned. And then we also look for effectiveness of the actual outputs, and we take the input from all of the system owners, if you will, to make sure at the end of the day we have an effective program. So it is a continuous process improvement opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Wilson has some questions for the Teamsters.
Thank you. Actually, I have some follow-ups for UPS before I get to Mr. Dickens. Mr. Springer, you mentioned with the service difficulty report, Mr. Johnson had asked you if you look at the SDR database for items related to your fleet, and you said until recently. So I was curious, since the accident, is that something that UPS has started doing?
So in the past, we always looked as SDR as a reporting system. And obviously, when you get into what other inputs do you have, not only our own internal experience, but what other ways can we get external inputs? So as part of our process improvement enhancement, we've made a change to ask our structures engineers to not only review our SDRs, but also make them aware that there's the ability to search the FAA database.
Are you aware, have they found anything of interest in that review?
This is a fairly recent change within our processes.
Okay. SDRs, when they're submitted, is there a quality control, quality assurance review process to make sure that quality SDRs are being submitted?
Yes, our engineering standards reporting team is responsible for reviewing everything that's been initially flagged as meeting the SDR criteria. And they also look at specific, in the current setting, they look at certain subject areas that are more prone to have potential SDRs to be a second way of identifying them. But part of that quality process is sometimes an item will be marked as an SDR as it comes through from the aircraft maintenance technician. They'll look at it, they'll review it with our engineering standards manager who has a structures background. If we're talking about structural defects, they'll get the right manager involved and make sure that we're consistent in meeting the criteria so that we're trying to submit the best and consistent data into the SDR system.
And when a structural defect is reported, does that ground the airplane?
In a line maintenance setting, when a structural defect is recorded, like any defect, it's now an open fault in our system, or could be, before we went to our current MIS system, would be an open logbook item, or could be an open logbook item too. So it has to be addressed per the manuals or other engineering document if it's outside the manuals, and it has to be closed before the airplane would be considered airworthy and return to service.
I'd like to add to that as well. From an overall perspective, just explaining a little bit further from what Dave had expressed with affecting the airworthiness release, any fault that's identified requires to be addressing the discrepancy before the aircraft can operate again. We have a airworthiness release procedure that is in our general maintenance manual, and it can only be performed by trained and qualified individuals on that process. We do this prior to every flight where we have maintenance staffed in that location. And the airworthiness release process certifies that the work was performed in accordance with our manuals, that all inspections that were required to be performed were performed to a satisfactory condition, that no known condition exists that would make the aircraft unairworthy. And so far as any of the work that was performed since the last airworthiness release process was executed, no known condition exists making the aircraft unairworthy. And so far as the work performed, the aircraft is in a condition for safe operation.
Thank you for that. We've seen in other accidents that SMS looks great on paper. And you identified that great slide of all of the different processes under your SMS. How do you think SMS has improved UPS's ability to identify trends?
I think if I go back to the initial time we implemented and had an initially approved SMS program, we like to refer to that time frame as having many silos of excellence. And I think it's broken the barriers down a lot where we have cross-pollination of information. It's really pulled our flight maintenance and ground operation teams together. We do a lot of collaborative reviews to get other perspectives on hazard identification within our operation. So I think we have a much wider lens of our organization now that we have SMS implemented.
Is the safety department included in that process? You mentioned flight and I think maintenance and engineering, but is safety also looped into that?
Yes, our airline safety department is part of that process, and they routinely attend meetings and analysis reviews to make sure at the end of the day we are executing the process correctly and recording the results so that we have those for record retention.
All right, Mr. Dickens. Could you please describe who at UPS is represented by Teamsters?
Okay, the aircraft maintenance technicians are represented by UPS Teamsters. Our utilities personnel are represented by Teamsters. Our tech publication individuals are also represented by Teamsters.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dickens, would you mind pulling that closer?
Okay, is that better?
Oh, wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And approximately how many employees does Teamsters represent at UPS?
Right now, we're approximately about 1,500.
And of the Teamsters personnel that are working on UPS aircraft, are they FAA certificated mechanics?
Yes.
And what about those working in maintenance control? What is their background?
Maintenance control are also individuals who have an airframe and power plant license. So technically, they are certified by the FAA.
We had FAA and also UPS define in service structural defects. How would you, as a mechanic and under maintenance control, how would you define that as well?
Yeah, I would use the similar information that they've already applied, but so technically cracks, permanent deformation, corrosion of aircraft structures, defects of that nature.
And for the line maintenance technicians, how are they trained to identify structural defects?
Okay. All aircraft maintenance personnel are trained in our GMM, which
Sorry,
states...
Mr. Dickens, would you mind moving the
Not at all.
microphone right in front of you?
How's that?
Wonderful.
Okay. So all the aircraft maintenance technicians are trained in our general maintenance manual, which gives them the definition of what a structural defect is and how they would proceed if a defect is found.
Is there on-the-job training as well?
Basically, if an aircraft technician has to be trained on the job, they would be provided some sort of a manual or an engineering order on specific details on what to look for the defects.
And who provides this training?
UPS provides training on a daily basis, and we have aircraft maintenance bulletins that are sent out regularly for updates on information that maintenance needs.
So information related to structural defects, is that a one-time training? Is that offered in recurrent training? How often do they receive that?
That I can't give an exact answer for.
Okay. What role...
Could you provide that for the record? Could the Teamsters provide that for the record in writing?
Yes, ma'am, we will attempt to get that for you.
Thank you.
What role does UPS maintenance control play in the reporting of structural defects?
So when a maintenance technician discovers a defect, that individual would enter that into the aircraft log as a discrepancy. Sometimes the maintenance technician himself will review the technical manuals. We will assist when required to help the mechanics go through those technical manuals. We'll help them determine whether or not it's something that can be repaired on a line maintenance base. If it's out of allowable limits, then that's when we would request engineering assistance, and then they would proceed with providing an EO for a corrective action.
And I don't know if this question is better for you, Mr. Dickens, or possibly UPS, but what structural defects seem to be the most common?
The most common in a line maintenance facility that we run would be dents and scratches or gouges on aircraft surfaces.
Is there a particular fleet that has more reports than others?
No, it's pretty much even across the board.
For the MD-11F fleet, are there any known hotspots, so to speak, structural defects that appear commonly on that aircraft?
None that I'm aware of.
UPS, do you have any data on that or information?
No specific data, but notionally we know that any part of the aircraft that's accessed on a routine basis, like lower cargo doors, main cargo doors, tend to have more structural discrepancies as far as dents or scratches or gouges, just because of the interfacing with ground support equipment.
Mr. Dickens, so when a defect is reported, and I think you alluded to this a little bit, but I'm just going to ask more pointedly. So a defect's reported to maintenance control, and what do you do next?
When a maintenance technician makes us aware of a defect, we will use the technical manuals to determine whether or not that's a allowable limit, maintenance manual, structural repair manual. If we cannot find a corrective action in those manuals, then that's when we would proceed with requesting engineering assistance and proceeding from there.
And again, this could be for UPS or Mr. Dickens. Does Maintenance identify repeat defects that are reported?
Yeah, in our maintenance system, we can search history for defects. Typically, we would use the ATA code system, or we can also search history using keywords.
So that's something that has to be initiated versus just an automatic, the process, the system itself is looking for trends.
If it's like a one-off type discrepancy from a mechanic, when we issue deferrals through our MEL system, once that process is started, it will trigger recent faults under that same category as we are in the middle of issuing that deferral through our MEL. More or less, it'll show some history that way.
I'll add as well that we have an analysis tool that we use that looks for repeats. It's not contained within the maintenance application, which is our maintenance information system we've generically referred to. We have other data mining tools that look for repeats as well, and that falls under the reliability portion of the CAS program.
And is there a dedicated person that is their role to look for that data, mine that data?
Yes, it falls under our maintenance action inspection program, or known as MAIP, within our general maintenance manual, and is performed in a tech support function within our airline, within aircraft maintenance and engineering. And they're looking for things such as like a repeat of 3 in 20 or 3 in 30 days, as it currently is now, for something that is repetitive in nature on a more current frequency.
And Mr. Dickens, does maintenance control receive any reports from outside vendors such as STE, SAA?
We don't receive the reports. We communicate with them and we assist them when we're able to, but specific reports we do not receive.
Is Teamsters involved at all in the analysis of repeat defects? Are you involved in either running those reports or participating in meetings regarding them?
That would be handled in a different department than the actual line maintenance Teamsters personnel.
Okay.
And I'll just I'll just clarify, the team that looks at that is within the tech support function of our maintenance organization.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Johnson, thank you very much.
All right, my next group of questions are for Mr. Gallegos from San Antonio Aerospace. Can you please describe the services San Antonio Aerospace provides for UPS, and let's look through a lens of at the time of the accident?
Sure, we provide major maintenance support for UPS and UPS aircraft.
And specifically, what type of work did San Antonio Aerospace perform on the MD-11 fleet?
So for the MD-11 fleet, we provided C-check support, we provided gear change support, and drop-in aircraft support, and other types of checks.
Okay. What is San Antonio Aerospace's definition of a structural defect?
Structural defect is similar, our definition is similar to UPS and basically taken from the FARs. It's a defect, cracks, corrosion, gouges to aircraft structure.
Okay. Are all San Antonio Aerospace maintenance personnel working on UPS FAA certificated mechanics?
No, not all of the maintenance personnel are certificated mechanics.
Are each of the San Antonio Aerospace maintenance personnel that work on airplanes for UPS given UPS training for procedures and documentation?
Yes, the initial training for any personnel working on the UPS program is a in-class training, and we go through their GMM, and then there is testing on that or after that training, and then there is recurrent training, which is a computer-based training.
All right, and how are changes to the UPS manuals communicated to San Antonio Aerospace personnel when they occur? So if there's a revision to a UPS maintenance manual, UPS general maintenance manual, how is that communicated and how is the workforce kept aware of that change in real time?
So UPS issues, I believe they're called AMBs or AMPs. I believe UPS can clarify what exactly they're called, but we get those notifications from UPS, and then our technicians are all required to read the bulletins that UPS issues and acknowledge that they have read and understood those bulletins.
Mr. Deckard, is that what those were called?
Yes, they are called Aircraft Maintenance Bulletins, AMB.
AMB. Are the San Antonio Aerospace inspections of the pylon aft bulkhead consistent with the UPS inspections described earlier?
Yes, we use the UPS task cards for the general visual inspection and the detailed visual inspection as described by UPS earlier.
Do you recall if San Antonio Aerospace has ever found any defects on the pylon aft bulkhead other than the 2008 swage ring failure?
Yes, I recall in 2020, we, as part of a different repair to a different area of the aircraft, actually to the wing of the aircraft we were doing, we had to drop or remove the engine and the pylon to do the repair on the wing, and corrosion was found subsequently on the aft bulkhead, and due to that corrosion, the aft spherical bearing had to be removed and replaced.
How are San Antonio Aerospace personnel trained to identify and report defects. We'll call it structural defects.
Excuse me. So like I stated earlier, all our personnel that work on the UPS program have to go through the GMM training, first of all, which defines, their maintenance program and structural defects. And then they go through training in our repair station manual, which covers, maintenance requirements and reporting requirements.
All right, let's expand on that a little bit. Is there a inspector qualification course where they're taught about corrosion and cracks and defects that they would be looking for?
Right, so our inspectors are all certified mechanics, and so they go through training to get certified by the FAA, and all our inspectors have a minimum of 5 years experience in aircraft maintenance, and they get training when they come in, initial training, they get a training assessment on what areas may be lacking that they need training on, and we focus OJT in those areas while they're working.
Are there any differences between San Antonio Aerospace and UPS inspection and maintenance procedures for the MD-11 pylon?
No, sir, we follow UPS's general maintenance manual procedures.
What personnel at San Antonio Aerospace are able to report defects?
Our quality control inspectors are able to report defects, and all of our AMTs are able to report defects.
What is the process according to the UPS working agreement for reporting structural defects?
Can we pull up Exhibit 11 Alpha Alpha? It's the same slide that UPS was explaining earlier. Page 5, I believe. I'm sorry, that's not the right page.
Page 13.
Apologies. So this is the SDR reporting process. It's not the defect. Do you mean defects as far as faults and non-routines?
That is correct.
What page is it on your process?
Take your time to look at the exhibit list. It's fine. Don't worry.
Apologies. No, the one where the fault is raised. The one where you explained the OEM. Yes, that one.
So it's going to be PDF page 6.
6. I'm sorry, page 6. Right. So when a structural defect is found, our quality control department will initiate a non-routine card in the UPS maintenance platform, and that is the current process. So just to be clear, we're talking about the current process, not in 2008.
Correct.
So when they initiate that defect, our AMTs evaluate the defect against the OEM manuals or the UPS data to verify or to see whether it is within allowable limits or not. And then if it is found to be within the allowable limits, they proceed to perform the maintenance per the OEM or UPS data. If it is found to be outside of the limits, then they contact engineering for support and disposition. If It is determined in coordination with SAA Engineering and UPS Engineering that OEM review is required. We will send the data to the OEM for disposition. Once the OEM provides the disposition, we work in coordination with UPS. We provide them documentation and instructions based on the OEM disposition. They review and they approve the documentation that we provide via their engineering order, and then those instructions are issued to the floor so the maintenance personnel can perform the task per the OEM or the UPS data.
Okay, one follow-up on a previous question. Are non-certificated individuals allowed to sign off work at San Antonio Aerospace?
I'm not exactly sure on that question. I'm not sure how exactly it works with our non-certificated mechanics. I know that the complete sign-off of the entire job, it has to be done by certificated, but each exact step that they do, I'm not sure exactly how that works, so we can definitely get that information to you at a later date.
Mr. Johnson, I don't know if it's appropriate if I could add something on the manual change process that you asked about earlier.
By all means.
I think it's important to note as well that the portal for the UPS manuals, which include our company manuals, such as the general maintenance manual, as well as the aircraft maintenance manuals that we provide to ST Engineering San Antonio, are only the current revision is available at all times in that portal that we provide to our vendor.
I guess what I'm trying to make sure is that when a change is made, that the techs on the floor are aware of that change, because the way they're doing it yesterday is not the way they're doing it today. So now we need to make sure that they understand there is a change and that they can follow it, and not everyone goes to the GMM every day of the week. So that's what I was trying to understand, is how is that communicated?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for importance of the old revision is no longer available, so an outdated process would no longer remain accessible.
Okay, thank you. Are repetitive defects at San Antonio Aerospace captured and reported in any way?
Yeah, currently all the defects are captured and reported in the UPS Maintenance platform.
So San Antonio Aerospace does not have its own system that would capture and report trends?
No, we do not. We rely on UPS's system for that.
Are repetitive defects reported to the FAA and or Boeing?
Repetitive defects, as described earlier, is just a non-routine that does not have an SDR, is not reported by us to the FAA. And if it does not require Boeing engineering, it is not reported by us to Boeing.
So if there are inconsistencies between a UPS work scope and a manufacturer's maintenance manual, how are those situations rectified?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific in as far as UPS work scope?
So if there's a task card from UPS, and I understand you're following UPS's program, but you notice that there's a difference between a Boeing maintenance manual and the instructions in that task card, how would you rectify that discrepancy?
Typically, the mechanics, if the task card contains all the instructions and does not refer us to the maintenance manual for anything, then we would not typically go to the aircraft maintenance manual. But if there's some reference to the aircraft maintenance manual in the task card, and if there is any discrepancies in between what the task card is telling us to do and what the AMM is telling to do, yes, we would definitely raise that to the to UPS. And I'm not aware of a system that does that, but usually those discrepancies are noted verbally or in writing by email to the local maintenance supervisors, UPS maintenance supervisors.
Okay. Does San Antonio Aerospace file any service difficulty reports on behalf of UPS?
We file the service difficulty